This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
What's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace, brought to you by the good folks over at Chat BCC. If you have not downloaded the app, please do that in the description below. The Indiana Pacers lose back-to-back games for the first time in the playoffs as they fall 120-109 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's not all doom and gloom. It is a lot of doom and gloom, but it's not all doom and gloom. It's a bummer, Facci. It's a bummer. And this is why I think people are going to say Game 4 stings even worse. But the series isn't over. But the Pacers cannot do what they did in Game 5 and expect to ever win a game, especially against this Thunder team. So you're pretty dejected. You're pretty upset. Yeah. There's no pep in the step.
None. Deflated.
Yeah.
I'm pep.
What are you thinking?
Look, here's what I'll say. I never felt good about Game 5. I never did. There's nowhere on record you could ever find me saying that we were going to win Game 5. I even tweeted out that I felt better about potentially winning Game 6 and Game 7 than I did about winning Game 5. You're going back into OKC, coming off of that Game 4, meltdown. I just felt like the Thunder crowd was going to be rocking. They were going to have the momentum, and I felt like the Pacers, I just felt like they would respond the next time at home. You have a good opportunity right now to be able to do that. But, I looked at this. Pat Boylan had the tweet out there. The last team to come back from trailing 3-2 in a series is the Indiana Pacers. They did it last year against the Knicks. You have an opportunity to do it again. But on a night like tonight, they came out flat. The first half was not good at all, and they trailed by as many as 18 points. The turnovers were just completely sloppy. And how many holes can Indiana dig themselves out of?
Yeah.
In a run, which we'll get to. But, you can't come out and play the way that you did coming off of a Game 4 meltdown. I wanted to see this team get out there and run and be able to, show something in the first quarter. And we didn't see it. 22 points in the first quarter, 23 in the second. It was a little bit deflating.
Yeah, it took a lot to get this team going. Now, I will say this, Facci, just so you kind of give yourself a bit of a pass here. You picked the Pacers to win this series in 7 games.
I did.
So if your prediction is to come true, this had to happen. They had to lose Game 5.
Yeah, look, if the prophet needs to be true or whatever you want to say it, then
the prophecy,
I guess, the prophecy, I'm out of touch. But look, I felt like for Game 5, unfortunately, it had to be the sacrifice. But I think at this point, it's it's tough. But I really do say, I tweeted it out. Book it right now. The Indiana Pacers will win Game 6. They will get it done. They will force a Game 7. But on a night like tonight, you and I talked off air. Tyrese had one of the worst playoff games out of in terms of expectations, and you had it within 2. So I feel like the man can only play better, moving forward. But I think it's time to maybe, kind of start with it. Let's talk about Tyrese's performance tonight. We know there was an injury. We know there was. We don't know the extent of the injury. Nonetheless, we know what the results were. What were your thoughts on Tyrese's play?
Obviously not good. Not good enough. And we saw that he did go back to the locker room at the end of the first quarter. They showed the play where he fell trying to drive on Chet. There was no contact. He falls down to the ground, comes up grabbing his leg, said it was a calf injury. Also, Shams reported at halftime that it was affecting the ankle, which we heard about. I believe it was in Game 2 when he hurt his ankle. Been playing through things, but it's still not good enough. And, at the end of the day, I think he had 7 rebounds, 6 assists. I think he ended up having 4 or 5 turnovers. I can't remember exactly what he had. I'll have to look it up here, but
ESPN says 3, but I feel like all these apps are always all over the place. It felt like it could have been.
He had 3 turnovers, He had 3 turnovers, 1 steal. It looks like he had 6 rebounds, 7 rebounds, according to this, what I'm looking at here on looking at Pivot Fade here. But regardless, he had 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 points. 4 points from the face of your franchise in a game that, puts this team on the brink of their season being over. And, I give him credit for playing through the injury. He's not making excuses. I don't think he looks scared, like Kendrick Perkins said. I just felt like he didn't feel comfortable getting any shots off. Like he really wasn't looking to attack ever. he seemed very passive, and that to me did not seem scared. It seemed to me like he was fighting something, and he wasn't trying to force shots, and I respect him for that to a certain degree. But yeah, 4 points, come on. TJ McConnell outplayed him in a 3-minute stretch in the third quarter for the entirety of this game.
And 4 points doesn't even do it justice. It's 0 of 6 from the field. He didn't make a shot. So I want to give him credit for being able to fight through the injury, because I had tweeted out and saying, like, look, if the game's out of reach, you got to consider resting him, to be able to have him ready for game 6. The game was not out of reach. Like, the Pacers made, quite a comeback. I hope that Tyrese is all right. I really do. Because especially at the end of the year, you want him to be healthy. This series is not over with. If he is all right and the injury isn't as bad as people think, I think you gotta unfortunately say, and this could sound harsh, that I think this is one of the biggest no-show type of performances out of an All-NBA player that I've ever seen on this type of stage. So there's no way around it. I can't defend 0 of 6. I'm getting clowned by everybody I know saying, like, this is, sending a lot.
Who are those people that you're talking to? Knicks fans?
Of course they're Knicks fans. But at the same point, it's like, look, there were some crazy comments even from ESPN. Like, Tyrese has his haters. He really does. Stephen A. slipped up. He said, I'm glad he's injured. Well, I'm not glad that he's injured. It's like, whoa. Like, let's take.
He meant he was glad to know that there was an injury there.
He meant, I think he meant, like, oh, I'm glad that you got some sort of excuse this type of performance. But then Perkins is calling him soft. Like, he's not soft. He played through this.
Perkins said he was scared.
Scared. I think I heard soft as well.
He said he was playing scared, and Bob Myers goes, playing scared's pretty harsh. And he goes, well, he's just playing scared. Yeah. And he said, I don't want him to play in the second half because I don't want the excuses.
Okay, Perk. Yeah, well, we need our guy. So Tyrese at any point could hit a huge shot that could have swung anything. So I'm glad that he did play out there, because I don't think that look, the injury, knock on wood, didn't get worse. We didn't see that. But he's a trooper. You know what? He's going for it, and I just feel like right now this was kind of like a rock bottom performance, because we know that Haliburton says time after time, it's almost become like a broken record or a joke. I got to be better. I got to be better.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. You got one more game to be better. And right now, Tyrese has to deliver. It's not just on him, but like we know when Tyrese is on his game, how this team is on another level. I saw a stat. This is what it was. Coming into this game, in the playoffs, in wins, he's averaging 20.8 points per game, 10.4 assists. The turnovers is 2.2. In losses, this is before this game, 13.5 points per game, 6.8 assists, and nearly 3 turnovers. So after tonight's performance of 4, it's like closer to averaging about 21 in a win and about 13 in a loss. That's a big difference for a team that thrives when Tyrese has it going. So on a night like tonight, I just feel like, hey, look, he can only be better, and he will be better in Game 6. It's hard for me to give him a pass, but I am happy that he gave it a go, because we needed him out there.
Well, let's hope that he's better in Game 6. I don't want to guarantee anything at this point with the way Haliburton's been so up and down this postseason. I mean, you would think, he didn't play great in Game 4. He had some moments. I think he had 18 points. So, that was pretty good for him for Game 4. Obviously, didn't get to 20, which is the threshold for him because he got to that in Game 3. So he had 2 back-to-back double-digit scoring games, close to 20 points. One was at 20, so I think he had 21, 22, something like that in Game 3 when you were there. But yeah, I just kind of wonder, like, if he is hurt, right? Like, how much can he actually do? Like, what do you do over the next 3 days if you're the Pacers before game 6, right? I think you got to be very careful with how much you put his body through during these, walkthroughs and practices and things like that, because obviously, like, I felt like the Pacers wanted to get Pascal Siakam getting early, get him going early. OKC came out and completely, dominated with the pressure and the defense and everything that they're good at doing. And Indiana was really struggling. I think their first play of the game was a backcourt violation. First play of after halftime was a backcourt violation. They ended the game on a Mathurin turnover. Turnover. They had 23
turnovers in the first quarter.
Well, they had 23 overall and only 23 assists. So a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That's not Pacers basketball. And we know that. And so we can step back from Tyrese because it's a bigger issue than just him,
Definitely.
right? But Siakam led the team with 28 points. He had 6 turnovers. Andrew Nembhard had some of the most costly turnovers in the fourth quarter. But I just think that if you think about it from this perspective, and if you want to have a glass half full perspective, I'm going to lay it out here for you, okay? Indiana, when's the last time they lost 3 games in a row? Okay?
Only that awkward stretch without Tyrese.
Right.
That out the window.
Yeah, and so they haven't really lost 3 games in a row in a long time. So it's going to be really hard to beat Indiana 3 times in a row. That's number one. Number two, you got a 40-point game from Jalen Williams and a 31-point game from SGA. Do we think that those two are going to score 70-plus points on the road in Gainbridge Fieldhouse? I don't think so. And then on top of that, you got much better shooting from three-point land from Aaron Wiggins, who was non-existent in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and Cason Wallace came in and hit 2 in that first quarter. Like, the fact that they were up by 10 points after the first quarter, OKC, you could say, wow, Cason Wallace hit 2 threes that he doesn't usually hit. Aaron Wiggins hit a 3, and Rick Carlisle gave them a free throw from a technical foul. There's a 10-point differential. I mean, I'm not saying that it's that simple of math, but I just think that if you're Indiana, right, you know that the Thunder had to play the better game. The Thunder could not go into Gainbridge Fieldhouse down 3-2. They could have if Indiana played better, but I'm just saying they had more pressure on themselves to win this game, and you could feel it. They were getting tight there in that third quarter, Facci. Pacers started finding it, and they started getting to the paint, and they were not doing that early on. So I just think that while I'm not trying to sit here and say like this game doesn't suck and what happened in Game 4 doesn't suck and things like that, I've been saying for the past, 5 days now that Indiana's going to win Game 6 no matter what happens in Game 5. I just felt very strongly about this, and it almost kind of reminds me, I told somebody this earlier today, it reminds me of when the Pacers were playing the Miami Heat in 2013, when they got beaten Game 5, then they come home and win Game 6, force a Game 7. They obviously got blown out in Game 7.
Blown out, like a 30-point loss at home.
I understand that, but that's kind of what it feels like a little bit. It feels like Indiana's that good of a team at home where they'll at least force a Game 7. But the NBA Finals are a lot different than the Eastern Conference Finals, and I don't think the talent on OKC was at the same level as the Heatles.
No, I don't think so either. I think that Indiana will get the job done at home. But yeah, I think in this game, like you mentioned, Cason Wallace, who goes 3 of 4 from 3. The man hadn't made a 3 in this series. He was 0 of 9. I felt like you got that 3-point shooting that you talked about. Lou Dort with that rainbow shot that we talked about. I mean, those threes, they're going in. OKC had their best 3-point shooting game of the series in this game. I mean, this is a team that made 3 3-pointers in Game 4 when they got it done, which still makes me sick. And on a night like tonight, 14 made threes. So they were really hitting their shots. If you go from the offensive rebounding side, it was 19 offensive rebounds by OKC to 18 for the Pacers. So it's pretty even, but for some reason, it just felt like OKC got more of those 50-50 type balls. Like there were some crucial situations where I feel like Indiana just couldn't get those rebounds, and OKC was able to get second chance points. You talked about turnovers. There was a stretch in the fourth quarter where Indiana was trying to make a run, and they had 4 straight turnovers. Mm-hmm. It was like they got in their own way. They might have put up 30 points in the the fourth quarter, but they did not play a good fourth quarter. I felt like the Thunder they converted when they needed to. They made the plays they needed to make. So this is a very upsetting type of game because you look at this. OKC, on the other hand, just like 11 turnovers. They protected the rock. They forced a lot of turnovers. They get 12 more shots in this game. OKC was the better team in this game. Indiana just managed to play a good third quarter, really spearheaded by TJ McConnell, who had 13 points and really kind of almost willed the Pacers back. Outside of that, it was really all OKC.
I think we need to talk about that stretch there at the very end of the third quarter when the Pacers had it to, I think it was 6 points, right? And TJ McConnell gets a steal, or Obi Toppin got a steal, and TJ McConnell missed that 3 to make it a 3-point game, right? The Pacers get the ball back, and I think Mathurin missed the shot or something like that. And all of a sudden, here comes OKC. They go down and hit it 2. So you went from a 4-point or was it a 4-point? No, a 6-point deficit, maybe going down to 4 or 3 to go into the fourth quarter to now an 8-point deficit. And it just kind of felt like you said, those 50-50 balls, even when Indiana got them at times, they weren't able to convert on them. And so I did feel like those little moments were just so crucial. And then you start out the fourth quarter, OKC goes on a 5-3 run. Carlisle calls a timeout and he pulls McConnell. You know why? Because McConnell is a short burst player. And I saw people say, why didn't they go back to McConnell sooner? Why didn't they do this? And look, McConnell gets gassed quick, and McConnell was working extremely hard to get the shots that he was getting. And I give him credit for everything that he did. I think one of the first baskets the Pacers scored in the fourth quarter was a McConnell drive to the basket, and he got a Siakam 3 in the corner. So to me, it was one of those things where you're just kind of seeing like him getting to the paint changed the game. And that's what Indiana needed to do more of. And you could kind of tell everybody just fed off McConnell's energy. And then the Pacers, after they call that timeout, they go on an 11-3 run, Facci, and cut it to 95-93 with 8 minutes and 10 seconds left to go in the fourth. And OKC just blows the doors open. They go on an 18-4 run. Jalen Williams had 8 points, going 3 of 3 from the field. The Thunder made 6 of 6 field goals and scored 10 points off turnovers with 5 steals during that stretch, like you were mentioning. Back to back to back to back to back turnovers, and it just completely opened up the floodgates for the Thunder. And the Pacers were just, they were just sitting there, just taking punch after punch after punch. And I mean, I don't know what else to say. I was so devastated when that happened. As soon as it was 95-93, I was like, oh my God, they're right back in it.
Exactly. They pulled me back in. And I told you, look, I was a little bit negative going into this game, bad feeling. And then when it was like, okay, when we were down like 18 or so, I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is one of those. Just get them ready for game 6. Do whatever's going to happen. Like, it's going to be all right. It wasn't our night. But like, they did enough to just bring this fan base back into it to say like, hey, this is a team of destiny. Like, we can pull this off. But we talked about that 18-4 stretch was just that was OKC putting their foot back on the gas, back on the pedal, and really being able to finish this one out. So I feel like for Indiana, look, you can play better. Tyrese Haliburton can only be better. I feel like you're going to need a bit of a bigger performance from an Andrew Nembhard, who in this game had, more turnovers than assists. Only had 7 points. Turner was probably a little bit better at times, I would say. I don't know. He hit a couple of shots, but at the time, rebounded a little bit more, but still not the Turner game you're looking for. Nesmith had his moments. I feel like Siakam had a really big fourth quarter. Obviously 28 points on paper. He did a lot.
He had 14 in the fourth.
Exactly. Like that was a big fourth quarter where he really brought that. So, can't knock Siakam in this game, but the bench, outside of that McConnell run, I feel like has to be better, in terms of like Benedict Mathurin. I mean, 2 of 11 in this game. Missing free throws. Again, I don't know what's really going on. Like, for a guy who's such a good free throw shooter, I don't know what happened even to start this game. He missed his first 2 free throws, and that's coming off of missing 3 of his last 4, or the last 3, whatever it was. He missed the last 3 free throws of the previous game, or 3 of the last 4. Like, it was just like, what is happening right now? So I think they're going to collectively come together. I think there's going to be a great showing. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't just beat OKC. I think they might beat OKC by double digits.
I hope so.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's one of those where they run them out of the building, and all of a sudden you get the 2 best words in all of sports, and that is Game 7. So it's just going to be a long time till Thursday, though. That I'll definitely tell you.
You sound like you're a little pep in your step right now thinking about a Game 7.
Eventually, I start to, get myself going a bit. But look, it's just this was a tough one. It really was, and I got a bad taste, and I've had a bad taste for a while now because obviously, 3 days off in between these games. I'm not happy how Game 4 ended. This game I felt like was, I'm not going to say it's one that they let slip away. It's not that type of scenario, but they could have played better. And that's the problem is like, sometimes it becomes a little too late to make a run. And I felt like in this type of game, they played such a bad first half that, it just really made things difficult. I mean, if you look at this right now, Indiana did outscore OKC in the second half, but that's only one half of things. That's not enough.
Yeah, it's tough, Foch. I want to sit here and be positive to a certain degree because for as bad as Indiana played, for them to have a chance to still be in this game in the fourth, on the road, hostile environment, and a must-win situation for OKC, in my personal opinion.
Must win. Absolutely. The OKC, if they lose this game, I think they're losing the series. I really do.
Yeah. And that's how I feel. Like, it honestly, like, to me, like, we talked about this the last couple of days, right? What is more difficult? Winning a game 5 or winning a game 7 on the road. And I think we both agreed that a game 5 is probably harder.
It's hard. And I know it might not make sense. And people could definitely disagree. But there's just something about that, like, one game, this is it, or lay it all on the line type of thing, where it's just like anything could happen. And we saw Indiana go into Madison Square Garden last year in Game 7 and have one of the most historic performances ever, despite being on the road. So, yeah, it's just like that OKC crowd for Game 5 was just set up to be like they had been waiting to get this, like, rejuvenation. And I feel like they got it. Obviously, that crowd was nuts. And I feel like you saw certain things just happen where certain role players playing a little bit better, diving on the floor, feeding off of the crowd, getting those loose balls. That is kind of what happens at home.
Yeah, I just think Indiana will start a lot faster at home. I think they'll feel more comfortable. I think the longer break, as much as it sucks for fans because you have to wait a full, 72 hours, whatever it is, from the last tip-off, I think you feel better about it knowing Haliburton's hurt.
Yeah,
some more time to recover, hopefully, from that. Anybody else that has any nagging injuries, maybe Miles Turner is better in game 6 because we really haven't seen him have a huge offensive explosion. But I go back and look at the field goal attempts, Facci, just to kind of give you an idea of like the variance here. You had 4 players shoot double-digit field goal attempts, 3 of them off the bench. Okay, that to me is problematic. Aaron Nesmith is 5th with 9, Nembhard 6th with 8, Haliburton 7th with 6. I mean, I'm just saying, outside of Pascal Siakam, the leading shot attempts came from 3 of your bench players. And if you look at the minutes, they played significantly less minutes. You're talking 21 minutes from TJ, 21 from Obi, and 22 from Ben. And then you see 24 from Aaron, 35 from Andrew, 34 from Tyrese. So I don't know. But let's talk about this for a second. 12 minutes and 16 seconds for Tony Bradley in this game.
A lot. And we hadn't seen Tony Bradley since they said May 29th. It's been almost 3 weeks, and all of a sudden,
Tony Bradley in this game?
He's playing double-digit minutes. I mean,
he was a +2, but come on, yeah. I don't buy that.
I have never had less confidence in someone than when Tony Bradley was running that fast break for a layup. I was like, this is not going in. There's no way, and it didn't. It didn't go in. So I just felt like in that scenario, it was a lot more minutes for Tony Bradley than we would have wanted to see. But man, I just feel like even the Shepherd minutes weren't good. Those 2, I feel like it's just, yikes for Game 6. I'd be curious if there is any changes. Do you see a shortened type of rotation, or is it just we've made it this far? This is what Indiana does, because eventually they do kind of tire out OKC. But I feel like you got to be able to get something. Shepherd's got to be able to hit a 3 here or there. I don't know if Tony Bradley needs to be back out there. I feel like there's guys that, like, you got good minutes out of McConnell at time that almost kind of busted this game back open. Like, Matherin's got to be better. He doesn't need to be the guy that he was before. I mean, 6 offensive rebounds is awesome. That's definitely worth something. It really is. Led the team. But, like, come on, 2 of 11 in this game. Like, we need the Mathurin that's going to be kind of balancing out. Like, could he give you 15? Could he give you 14? Something of the sort. But, man, this team's got to come together. They got to come together quick. And I just think that they can be better. Ironically, 109. It's not 110. It's still that mark. How do you get to 110? How do you follow the trend where you're still undefeated? And I feel like 110 just seems to be that number for the Pacers. 109 just ain't going to cut it.
Their defense has to be better. Has to be. I mean,
this was probably the worst I think it's been. This was the second most points that they've given up to the Thunder. And obviously in those, when OKC has scored, 120, 123. Those are the wins. The other one,
123, 107 was game 2, 120 to 109 tonight.
So if OKC scores 111, those are the games that they're winning. That they are 3-0 when they've scored 111.
They're tough, man. And, I don't want to have this conversation yet, so I'll save it for another day. But
all right.
I'm just telling you, like, the fact that the Pacers had a chance to be in this game, like, I wouldn't hang your head too low. And even if they lose game 6, right? Even if they lose game 6, the way they compete is all I really care about. I mean, at this point, you just want to see them fight. And they've done that all season long. And they're in the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. And it's not a victory lap to say, oh, my God, they're in the NBA Finals. Like, how cool is this? We love it. It is really cool. And we're going to always remember this season no matter what the outcome is.
Yes.
But I think you're going to kick yourself a lot for just how game 4 ended, more so than game 5. Just because, game 4 was right there, and you kind of crapped that one away with a chance to go up 3-1. We just said there's no way they can beat Indiana 3 times in a row. I mean, that would be a little bit shocking to me if they won that many. But I think if you go back and listen to the beginning of the broadcast, I know a lot of people are very frustrated with Doris Burke, Richard Jefferson, Mike Breen, and they don't think the broadcast team is very great. Nobody likes the ESPN production. That's whatever. But I think Richard Jefferson said it. Maybe it was Mike Breen. I can't remember. But somebody said, at the end of the day, we got to quit calling this team, an underdog. We got to quit calling this team like the whatever you want to call it. Like, not the underdog, but like another word for that. Like, yes, OKC is the favorites. But it's like the Pacers belong here. They've played great basketball. And so, I appreciate them saying that. I appreciate them kind of standing up for Indiana to a little bit, to a certain degree. But yeah, they got to be better. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But like the Tony Bradley minutes, what are we doing? Come on, Carlisle. You can't play Tony Bradley and Shepard together on the floor at the same time. I mean, the floor spacing with Tony Bradley and TJ McConnell is horrific, especially when you have TJ playing off ball. TJ's in the corner. Like I pointed this play out on Twitter because I thought it was interesting in the first quarter. Tony Bradley's sitting over there in the dunker spot. You got guys shading over trying to keep Pascal Siakam from posting up Case and Wallace. Well, TJ McConnell realizes, oh, shoot, they're not even guarding me. I'm going to go sprint to the middle of the free throw line. He gets in there, gets the ball, shoots it, misses it. Was a good look, though. They got the rebound and they got fouled. But it's just like little things like that, like it just clogs up what you're trying to do. And it's like, okay, see, like if Tony Bradley sets a screen, what are they going to do? They're going to let him do whatever he wants. If he wants to waltz down the lane, they'll let him have that. He's easy to guard. There's no rhyme or reason to playing him at all, in my opinion. And unless Miles is dealing with a massive injury and you hate Thomas Bryant's play that much, okay, but still, I know he was a +2. I know he had a decent stat line for what he's doing, right, Tony Bradley, but it just, to me, they were like the worst minutes, like the worst timing of those minutes came with Tony Bradley in the game.
It was bad. But to unpack something that you said, earlier in this, it's just my fear. I've told my friends this, and whether you want to hear it, believe it or not, I believe that loss in Game 4 could haunt this franchise for a long time. I really do. If they don't get a championship, I think everybody will always look back and say, man, we were this close. We were a Game 4 victory away from we would have went up 3-1. Like, yeah. That's what worries me. These opportunities, you don't know when they're going to come again. Yes, Indiana deserves to be here. They do. But it's hard to get back. And they had an opportunity to go up 3-1. That was a golden opportunity. This is a really good Thunder team. This Thunder team would have blown out the Knicks. Would have blown them out. Indiana has not been blown out in any of these games. Like you can, the biggest loss of margin is 15 in Game 2, and that's the Thunder, at home coming off of a loss. Like there's been, for the most part, this has been like a really good series, and I just feel like that was such a huge opportunity that now Indiana needs to dig themselves out of a hole. The first 2 games, you can make an argument that, it wasn't looking good. Remember, they led for 1:54. They have looked far more like a legitimate team, I would say, ever since then. Obviously, Game 3, great. Game 4, deserved to win. Game 5, they were hanging around. They were hanging around for a while. But I think that it was a big opportunity that you fumbled away. Now, all you can do is try and just make up for it. You got to win game 6. You know it's an uphill battle after you blow one of those type of opportunities. But game 6, we're going to learn a lot about this team. True backs against the wall. So at this point, let's see him respond. Let's see him handle business. Bring it in the crowd. That crowd has got to be. We've said this so many times. Game 3, game 4, game 6 now. It's got to be the craziest crowd, arguably ever, if not in the last 25 plus years, because this team needs it.
Facci, I'll tell you this. It's not been looking good for the Pacers on the road against OKC this series, right? We talked about it early on. I think this kind of been lost.
Yeah.
Well, it's been kind of lost because we had games 3 and games 4, but like go back to those conversations we had where we said in those 96 minutes, the Thunder led for 94. And then it's tonight's game. I think Indiana led for like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that on the road, this team has led for like 3 minutes. You know, basically
3 to 4 minutes tops.
That's insane. But it just shows that all it takes is really one at this point. I know we did already steal one, but you know, if you can win at home, all of a sudden it's 0-0, it's 3-3, however you want to look at it. All it comes down to is just one more game, and anything can happen there. Against the Knicks, we know how that went. Indiana dropped the first 2. Actually, they dropped the first 3 games to the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. Not like that. I'm saying game 1, game 2, game 5.
They won all their home games. Every team won the home game until game 7.
And then it came down to just, hey, you got to do something that you haven't done before in this series, and that is what Indiana did. So, hey, can they do it again? I'm not going to say they can't. I'm not going to say they can't. But I will say, and I'll say it again, and I will be on record, they are winning game 6, and I will be back here for that post-game episode telling you, oh, I told you so.
Oh, it's a Faccio, man, with the pep in the step.
You just might hear it. You just might.
If they would have won game 4, I mean, honestly, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. Facci pre-recorded the pep in the step if the Pacers were going to go up 3-1. I told you guys this at the end of the podcast I did with Derek Kramer from My Pacers. What I didn't tell you is I actually listened to it later because I wanted to hear what it sounded like. And the Faccio, man, just literally had me in tears laughing. Knowing the Pacers lost that game, I was just like, this recording Facci gave us would have been so golden if we could have played it. So I'm really hoping we get something similar, please. If they win game 6, I got to get more of the Faccio, man, because that was excellent. It would only
be crazier if we're forcing a game 7 with everything on the line.
Yeah.
To tell you a little backstory on that, I got my in-laws here at the time, and they're sitting down, and we're watching the game, and I just kind of like walk upstairs and just kind of go, and I shut the door real quick. I'm like, all right, this shouldn't take long. Let me just record something in case we win this. Like, it was halftime. The Pacers had a lead, and you know, they could obviously hear me through the walls. And when I came down, they were just like, what was that? And I was like, it's nothing. Just you know, I had to record a little something for the listeners, you know, because they heard me going off and going wild. But at the same point, you know, I wanted to be a part of that episode that I couldn't make. Hard to miss those post-game episodes that, you know, they're either great or they're a little bit tough. And tonight, it might be tough, but the next one, it's going to be great.
We'll see what happens. I'm excited. I mean, it to me, it's just like, you know what? Tyrese Haliburton talked about, like, oh, we love this opportunity. We're so excited for it. Like, we want to go out there and play. And then, of course, Tyrese Haliburton kind of probably buying into the pre-trip hype a little bit with the Culver's custard that he had going with him on the plane. Everyone's like, oh, man, Tyrese Haliburton's got the Culver's on the plane. Pacers about to win. And then, you know, all the statistics that we've seen from this team, OKC's kind of debunking them. And, you know, I had this thought in my head the other day. I said, wouldn't that be crazy if Indiana wins game 6, forces a game 7, and Haliburton has a game winner in game 7? They kind of end it like with this miracle run.
The statue would have to just, I mean, you could just build the statue while he's playing at that point.
And immediately after I dreamed that in my head, I'm like, that'd be so cool. I thought, or how devastating would it be if he had a chance to win the game and he missed the game-winning shot in a game 7 too. Like, I could just see that happening too, just because of how many crazy runs we've already had. But Facci, this is one of those things where I'm not going to keep rambling and whatever, but this was one of those games where OKC dominated pretty much from start to finish, and Indiana had their moments where they were able to kind of like make it interesting, put some pressure on OKC. But like Jalen Williams said in his fourth quarter interview with Lisa Salters, like, we just got to stay calm. We just got to figure things out. And then post game, he didn't even realize that it got down to 2 points. He hit a 3 quickly after that to make it a 5-point game. But still, this is one of those things where I thought he was phenomenal tonight. I thought he was way better than SGA. Yeah. And Alex Caruso, I think he shot like 12%. What'd you say?
SGA shot under 50% in this game. He was 9 of 21. Like,
yeah, but he still had 31 points. What
did
he have? 4 steals or 4 blocks?
It was 4 blocks, which is
4 blocks. Okay.
But like the fact is that SGA and Jalen Williams combined for 26 free throws in this game. So it's like, man, that is a lot of free throws.
Of their what, 32?
Yeah, 26 of their 32 free throws came from those two players. So, you know, pretty big instances going to the line, and you know, they shot pretty well from the free throw line for the most part. Like I said, and you said, Jalen Williams ain't gonna drop 40. You know, in Game 6, very talented player, but we saw him have some pretty off games in Game 1 and 2. Shai's gonna get his, but I think at the same point, like, could a guy like Aaron Wiggins come out and give you 0 or 3? We've seen it happen before. It can happen again. Casey Wallace ain't going to shoot 3 or 4 from 3 again. That man didn't make a 3 in the series, like I mentioned. I think there's other guys that are going to have some down performances. Indiana has some guys I think are going to have some, you know, better performances. Things tend to even out a little bit, but Game 6, man, that is the sense of urgency has to be there from tip-off.
Yeah, it really does. I think it will be. We've seen this team fight really hard when they've been on the brink of elimination before. Like we saw in Game 6 against the New York Knicks last season, like we saw in Game 4 against the Boston Celtics, where they just barely lost that game as well. And that was without Haliburton, right? And that was with Nembhard kind of going crazy against Derek White and Drew Holiday. So, you know, this team's matured. This team's gotten better. This team's been better at home this season too as well. And we'll see. I mean, I feel like role players always play better at home. We saw guys like Aaron Wiggins and Casey Wallace have big games. Could Ben Shepherd, could Thomas Bryant have a big game on the road? At home, excuse me. If he were to play, Mathurin had a huge game with 27 points. Yeah. You know, could he get going? Because 2 of 11 for Mathurin is just not going to cut it, especially with him playing a little bit more. I felt like he was very indecisive, but I'm going to dive into more of this stuff tomorrow with the guys from the group chat, so we don't have to continue to go into all the nitty gritty of all the things that the Pacers can do better. But tough loss, obviously. You don't ever like the feeling of being down 3 games to 2. First time the Pacers are down in a series too as well, Facci. So find themselves in unfamiliar territory that they haven't found themselves in all postseason long for the 2025 postseason. But this is why you have a champion in Pascal Siakam. This is why you have a championship head coach in Rick Carlisle to rely on. And look, OKC is a better team. Like let's just put that into perspective.
I know. That's the thing. They're a great team. They really are a great team. And I remember there's people who didn't even think, like we said, that Indiana even belonged. If this goes to 7 or Indiana wins in 7, it's going to be special. It really is. And like, you know, I do think it's time that like they stop looking at the Pacers as this shocking surprise type of team when now they've gone to back-to-back conference finals and they're taking OKC to 6 to 7 games and maybe even winning it. Like, who knows? If the Pacers end up pulling this out and they win, they're going to be looked at as one of the greatest underdogs. I would say you can make an argument potentially of all time. I saw that the Pacers had the lowest odds to win a championship if they get this done out of any team in major sports. It says it was like a plus 8,000 entering the playoffs to be able to win a championship. So in terms of NHL, MLB, NFL, this would be the biggest upset, type of performance. And I think that's really, really impressive. But we've come too far just to make it close. We want to win it. And I think this team will respond. Give them a couple of days. Backs against the wall. We typically see teams do everything possible where it's like that next game, it's almost like a superhuman type game when you're facing elimination. We've seen that happen plenty of times against the Pacers where a team will, they're going to give everything they got to force one more. But I think at this point, look, Indiana, the ball's in your court. You've heard everything. You're not happy with how this went. It's time to respond. We will be waiting. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to twiddle our thumbs and wait. But you can always bet that Setting the Pace is going to have the content for you in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, game 6 is going to be a lot of fun. So if you can get to the Fieldhouse, please do. If you can get to the watch parties, please do. Hopefully they don't get rained out this time, so people are able to watch the watch party outside in the Bicentennial area. I feel like they could actually up the tickets that they gave out from last time. I felt like there was a little bit more room to watch the game than they sold tickets for. So maybe they do up it by like 250 or 300 tickets just to get more fans in that area. Because, I mean, it's good for the city, you know? And I just think that at the end of the day, like, the Pacers are in the finals. It's not common that they're in the finals, right? It's been 25 years since they've been here. So I feel confident. And one thing I will say, if the Pacers do end up losing in game 6 and they lose the finals, right? And it's a crazy loss, whatever, or OKC just has like a really good game, whatever. It wouldn't shock me if Indiana came back next year even more hungry to get back to the NBA Finals, and which wouldn't be the worst thing to have that extra chip on their shoulder because these are all the guys that are going to be on the team again. It's not like the previous Pacers team that people retired after that finals run.
There's a big drastic change 1 year. But here's what I will say. I ain't ready to talk like that yet. This season ain't over.
I'm just throwing it out there, Foch. Come on, Focho.
I know. I can't put it in the air yet because I just feel like, look, does this hurt? It does. It stings. I'm not happy. Bad taste. I'm going to wake up a little upset too. I know my wife, she fell asleep. She'd be like, how'd the game go? It's like, ooh, bad question, babe. But, I think it's just one of those where we're going to get through this. We are. And, hey, just Thursday is going to be a party.
Are you going to be there?
I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to.
We need you to be there for the game.
I know. Who would have thought it would have been at the point where the Pacers haven't won since I left? Like,
oh, man.
I went from jinx to all of a sudden it's like, hey, man, when I'm there, we're pulling off some pretty wild wins. So it is a bummer not to be there. But, man, I could tell you this. That whole trip was very expensive. And it was just one of those where it's like, man,
we need Chad Buchanan to get you a ticket.
Yeah.
Pay for your plane ticket.
That would be something, because I'll tell you, even the lifts back from the airport to my house, like, it just kept going. I mean, the pending charges finally just went through. It's like that trip was, whew.
My parents have 3 extra bedrooms at their house. I'm sure you could crash at their place.
All right, thank you. Well, hey, it is appealing. Man, I know this team does need me right now. But, I already got the text from some people saying, you hitting game 6? It's like, nah, man.
You got to change a jersey. Why are you wearing a sleeveless jersey on the podcast tonight? We lost.
I've worn a jersey every game, except for the one I was with you guys, because they handed out the shirt. So, yeah.
Did you leave that one in the car? I thought you put a jersey on.
No,
Reggie Miller jersey on.
For the episode, I did. So, I guess technically it's every episode I've had a jersey on.
Yeah.
But I had to switch from the Matherin back to the Reggie. It was one of those. The last game the missed free throws really got to me. It really.
Did you wear Matherin's last game?
I did. So, and then after the free throws.
You got a Jermaine O'Neal jersey?
I got a Jermaine. I got a lot of Jermaine.
You got to wear that. We're forcing to game 7.
Might have to. I have not rocked the Jermaine during this playoff run, so I think it's probably time. But yeah,
you got to rock it, Foch.
Yeah, I might just have to. Got to do what I got to do. Everyone's got to do their part, like I've said all along. And you know what? Hey, let's just respond Thursday. It'll be here soon enough. Ox, no player awards tonight. Let's take it on home.
Let's wrap this one up, Facci. There's nothing else to say. We're rambling at this point. It's 12:15. We've been going for about 45 minutes. The Pacers lose this game, 120-109. They didn't play good basketball. OKC played terrific basketball on both sides of the court. Dominated most of the game. We've talked about it. We'll talk about it more in depth with the guys from the group chat tomorrow. And then I've got John Herrick coming on Wednesday night. So that'll be good. But we got a lot of stuff going on here on this content. So just keep tuned to the channel. You never know what's going to happen. But we'll be back for game 6. Facci and I will be to recap that. So Facci needs some time to, keep on talking with those kiddos and raising those kiddos right to be Pacer fans. And right now, after game 3, these kiddos were like, let me give you that Haliburton shirt. Now they're like, Dad, I got to take my Haliburton shirt off. So he's got to deal with both sides of it. My friend David was talking about his son crying because the Pacers lost. It's tough. It's difficult. I haven't got to that point yet, but we're here. So with that being said, we'll be back. Facci, if you're up with the Pacers, win game 6 and force the game 7 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, then please hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.